All right, convention week is done. It's over. Both the convention weeks are over. It's time to talk about the big speech last night. I hope everybody watched. I know I did. I watched the hour leading up to it as well, which was very well done. Very well done by the GOP and the RNC, I guess I should say. I thought the widow of the police officer, Mr. Dorn, was very moving. It's horrible to listen to that. I mean, it almost makes you, I hate to say this, but it almost makes you want to turn it off because it's just such a sad situation. And it goes to show you how sick these people are. A lot of these looters, and not just them, but the media. How is it that the majority of Americans, the majority of people worldwide will not know what happened to this man? They will not know. The media does not report it. An event like that, a story like that, you'd think would be worthy of nationwide news coverage, but no, it doesn't really fit the CNN agenda. It doesn't fit the MSNBC agenda. It doesn't fit the mainstream media agenda. That would mean that the rioters would look bad, and we can't have that. We can't possibly have that. But you did see Don Lemon, who is beginning to catch on. When Don Lemon has started to catch on that the riots aren't good, remember he said the polling is in? We'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to start off on too much of a negative note. I thought the whole night was great, and I didn't do a video last night, so I want to comment on Melania too. I thought Melania did fantastic. I thought, I'm a big optics guy, and I stole that phrase from Nick Fuentes. I mean, he wasn't the first one to use it, obviously, and he uses it sometimes in a bit of a different context when it comes to how the right wing should look and how the right wing should act if we want our ideas to be taken seriously, which I completely agree with all that. When I use it in a similar way, but it means basically that if we want to win elections, if we want to win hearts and minds, if people on the right and conservatives in general want to make inroads, it can't just be about the ideas. It has to be more than that. We have to be presentable. We have to put forth our cause in a way that looks good, to say it plainly. Melania and Ivanka did that very well. So Ivanka introduced her father. I have to say, and I know there are a lot of people who don't like Ivanka because her and her husband Jared Kushner are pushing a more of a globalist agenda. I think, I don't even think that's an exaggeration anymore. You read about it and it's pretty well known that that's what's going on. Which isn't to say there aren't assets that they aren't assets in general to Trump's re-election bid and to his White House. But it's clear that they are not exactly America first. But I was very surprised. I have to say, I was extremely surprised that Ivanka's speech, first of all, it went pretty long. It could have been a little bit shorter, but okay. But her speech was, I would argue, possibly more populist than Trump's was last night, than her father, than the president's. She talked about him going and shaking up Washington. She had a line about how Washington has not changed Donald Trump, but Donald Trump has changed Washington. Fantastic line. She talked about how they, on trade, they were having a discussion one night about what to do with NAFTA, and Trump basically said, look, politicians in the past, when the economy is good, they don't want to change anything. And when the economy is bad, they just want to kick it down the road to another politician, to another president. And he said, enough is enough. We have to deal with this. And I was surprised because, remember, it's well documented that on the issues of NAFTA, free trade, that sort of thing, Kushner and Ivanka, Jovanka as they're well known, have been against all that with Gary Cohn and everyone else who used to be in the White House. So, fighting Steve Bannon on this tooth and nail, but she comes out and she supports the populist decisions that her father has made. So I thought that was fantastic. There were some other really good lines, and she just struck the perfect chord. She was saying, look, you may not like my father's tweets, you may not like the way he goes about things, but he came here to shake things up. That's what you voted for, and He doesn't care about the elite. He cares about you. And that, I thought that was fantastic. Now, I have some notes here, so I keep looking down. Trump gave what I thought was a great speech. As I'm watching it, I thought to myself, you know, this isn't the normal Trump. He was a lot calmer. You could even tell when he first came out, when he first walked down the steps there, he was very serious. It was not one of his fire and brimstone type speeches. If you watched the convention speech 4 years ago, it was nothing like that. I mean, he was almost yelling and screaming and gesticulating for that speech, and I loved that speech, but it's a different time now. He's president now. He's not charging the barricades. Now he's in the barricades. Now he's in charge. So, and I thought it was a good decision because I was watching Fox and I watched the reaction. It's funny, you know, even Fox tears him apart now. Not for the same reasons that CNN and the other channels do, but they still tear him apart. So I was watching Fox and they had Chris Wallace on, they had Brit Hume on, and they basically said, look, the speech fell flat. It wasn't that good. It wasn't vintage Trump. I think what Chris Wallace said was, I thought I was going to see more fireworks before the actual fireworks. But I thought it was perfect. Look, these are the same people, and I like Brit Hume, don't get me wrong, but these are the people, a lot of the never-Trumpers, who used to be telling us that he's too crazy, he needs to be more serious, he's the president, he needs to act a certain way, he needs to tone it down, blah, blah, blah. And finally he comes out and he tones it down. He gives a very, I'm not going to say a boilerplate Republican speech, because he has changed the Republican Party, and for the better, in ways that are unquantifiable, if that's the right word. But they're the ones who always say he's not serious enough. But he came out and he gave a very serious speech, and I thought that was absolutely the right thing to do, because you have a national audience watching. You have a lot of people who aren't political. They're watching. It's CNN covered it start to finish, no interruptions. This is your chance to show all the people who believe in the mainstream media narrative and all the myths that are put out there. So he had a chance to strike them down. Now, he could have come out and riled up the base and gave a great speech, as I say, fire and brimstone and typical Trump. But you know, people who tuned in thinking he was a maniac might tune in and go, oh yeah, the media is right, he is a maniac. Click. But instead, I think a lot of people tuned in last night looking for a maniac, and they found a very serious, very reverent president who wants to keep the nation safe, who wants to keep America, and as cliche as that sounds. But the best part of the whole night wasn't just a speech, to me. It was the whole vibe of the evening, and it was such a contrast to the Democrats in every single way. Not just in the fact that the Democrats was cringe, and, you know, Biden with a mask on waving to Zoom callers, like, what? That's, I mean, looking back, it looks even worse now. You remember, I made a video and I said, warning Republicans, we're going to have to do this next week. It's probably going to be a little cringe as well. But it turned out it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I mean, there were maybe a few speeches and a few moments where you went, okay, yeah, well, I'd rather that not have been shown on national television. Maybe Kimberly Guilfoyle. I don't know. I haven't watched Kimberly Guilfoyle's speech in its entirety. But the whole convention, it was almost better than a normal convention. It's almost like they used this to their advantage, and they said, oh, we don't need to be in an arena anymore with the balloons. Now we can be at the White House. It can be perfectly lit. We can have fireworks. Remember, you're outside. If the weather is good, you can have a huge fireworks display, which they did. It was fantastic. It was the pageantry. It was regal. It was everything you would want this nation to be if you're a Republican. It was just it was so refreshing to see that, and to think. And what was even better, and I hate to say it was better, because I know you never want to see riots and protests and all that, especially after listening to the widow. I'm forgetting her name, which I wish I didn't, but the widow of the police officer who was shot. After watching that, you hate to see these protests, but the contrast, it could not be more clear. The fireworks, the flags, the veterans, the border agents, everything about it. And then, okay, the convention's over. 2 minutes later, protests surrounding Rand Paul, and no, I should rewind a bit. I don't think they actually did destroy DC last night, but these are the same people who destroy all the other cities. The only reason they're not destroying DC, I believe, is because I believe the president has some purview over what happens in DC. So if things start to get a little unruly, he can step in and send heavy-duty armory in. So the protests, the havoc, I mean, it's not like it's a protest where they're marching arm in arm for peace and reform. They are rioting. They are running all over the streets, yelling at people. There's video of them yelling at nice elderly people coming out of the Trump convention. They weren't bothering anybody. They were just walking to their hotel, and they were being yelled at, given the finger, accosted. And the contrast between that and what you just saw, the choice is so clear. It is so clear. Everything about that night was perfect. So there was nothing, there was no flub. You watch that whole Trump speech, usually he slurs a word somewhere here and there. If you give an hour-and-a-half speech, you're going to maybe mess up a part of it. But there was nothing. It was perfect. He conducted himself perfectly, and you're probably saying, "Oh yeah, sure, Tyler. You're going to say he did fine no matter what." Well, look, I am able to criticize the president, and I have. Unfortunately, I don't have much documentation of that unless you follow me on Twitter, because I just started these videos recently. But look, I thought it was a great speech, and I saw someone today tweet, because he's in New Hampshire giving a rally at this is what he does now. He parks his Air Force One in the plane hangar and gives a speech, and someone said, "Oh, he's much more high energy today." Well, yeah, he's in a different venue today. Like, if you're giving a speech to 1,000 people at the White House on a night like that, you're not going to be up there riffing and telling jokes. So I thought it was fine. I thought it was perfect. I do want to show you, just for some laughs, I want to show you some of the reactions to this, and then we'll wrap this up. But I thought that this just sums it up. This just sums up the other side. As I went to bed, I'm scrolling through my Twitter, and I see a tweet here from Norm Eisen. It says he's a senior fellow at Brookings Gov. Yeah, okay, sure. Former impeachment special counsel. I didn't know that. And he's written a book, The American People versus Trump, or some such silly thing. So, okay, so this is his tweet. He's got a picture here of the fireworks and the huge crowd. "Do you know what I see? Question mark. Literally thousands of Hatch Act violations. One for every federal official who helped with or participated in this revolting display." A revolting display. This is what the Democrats think of your country. A revolting display. The greatest mass Hatch Act transgression in U.S. history. Even the fireworks are a violation. This guy must be a blast at parties, as they say. In the comments, I mean, he got roasted in the comments, rightfully so. Boy, oh boy. Can you imagine watching this whole thing, and your thought isn't, "Oh crap, maybe we should have put on a convention that honored the country and was positive about the country, but we didn't. So maybe we should learn from this." No, they're not going to learn from it. They're just going to say, let's find out how many of these people we can jail for violation of the Hatch Act. The fireworks are a violation as well. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is what they have become. This one might be even better. And this one is so bad that I think it might be a joke. I'm afraid to read it because I think I'm going to check it later on, and it's going to turn out that I was punked into believing this. Andrea Bernstein, co-host Trump Inc. podcast from WNYC and ProPublica, New York Times best-selling author, American Oligarchs, the Kushners, the Trumps, and the Marriage of Money and Power. Okay, that's her bio. Right. Here's her tweet after last night. Ivanka Trump has tweeted a photo of her son Joseph with his grandfather at the Resolute desk with the Lego White House. "I've asked the White House if 3-year-old Joseph indeed built it of his own initiative, and if he had assistant, will tweet reply if/when I get it."